So, it's been a year now since I started playing Star Citizen, and like the video I made after 4 months, which was basically the point I decided not to return to Elite Dangerous, I figured it was a good time to share my thoughts and experiences with you again. The Star Citizen experience is an interesting animal, with both highs and lows, and some of those factors only really become apparent over the long term. So most of what I spoke about in the 4-month video still applies, and I'm going to avoid retreading that ground as much as possible. You can go watch that video for initial reactions and impressions, and in this video we'll be covering what the experience of the game is like over extended periods. Also, I'm aware that some people find my voice annoying. I have an unusual voice caused by a condition called laryngitis sicca. That's a throat condition that basically causes half of my throat to be covered in like a hardened mucus. It isn't something I bring up often because, well, the description alone is kind of gross, and it makes speaking very forced and kind of painful. And sometimes it affects me more than others, but if you do find my voice annoying because of that, the TLDR of this video is that Star Citizen is great, but with some sizable caveats. This game is still in alpha and active development. I started playing during 3.13 and we're now in 3.17.1. That's 4 major patch cycles. When I began playing about a year ago, I was amazed by just how much immersion and detail the game had to offer. The ability to walk around inside your ship and the jaw-dropping environments of the game are just incredible. The combat was punchy and fell on the side of realism, which I really liked. Crewing a ship with several people and running missions together was a blast, and the emergent adventures we had that seemed to happen often spontaneously really brought those early experiences to life. Visiting all of the key locations and landmarks for the first time was a real journey, with so much character and sense of place to every location we went to. And the community was very welcoming to the wave of Elite Dangerous refugees suddenly arriving in Stanton. Since those first steps into the verse, we've seen development of an entire gas giant and floating city in the clouds, Orison. Volumetric clouds added to other planets, the arrival of looting, the medical system, the inventory system, ship capacitors, combat changes, and new mission types, countless new ships and weapons, new points of interest like derelict crash sites, overhauls of vehicle handling, massive events like Jumptown, and my first experiences of the big ship shows like IAE and Invictus Launch Week. There has been a lot of positives in that time, a lot of adventures, a lot of new friends, a lot of experiences with the org. Comparing the game I see today with the game I saw a year ago is night and day. So let's talk about some positive aspects of a year in Star Citizen. After a year of playing, I still have to pause to take in the spectacle of entering some of the planet or moon atmospheres. I circumnavigated an entire planet, Microtech, and it never felt like I was retreading ground. Every location felt like a real place and like we were entering something new with every challenge that we met. Crewing a ship with a bunch of other people and managing not just the travel and combat but the logistics and survival considerations together, and often getting into unplanned adventures is remarkable. The combat always feels punchy, and during major events things get intense. I am pleased to say that having to journey through your ship to enter or exit never gets old or boring. This was one of many cynical criticisms we ED refugees were met with from the more senior detractors in that community, but no, it remains one of the most immersive and enjoyable aspects of the experience. The fact that so much can be shared between players was a revelation when I came over from Elite Dangerous, and to this day it remains one of the key features, allowing such a level of cooperative play together. I've been lucky enough to experience most of the activities in the game over the past year, from taking down wanted players as a bounty hunter, to recovering drugs for a criminal gang, mining giant asteroids or surface rocks, both alone and with friends, mining in the ground-based rock vehicle, and even learning to hand mine while in prison. I've run cargo and run blockades, delivered packages and led an org. While not all of these professions are as feature complete as the others, and some are missing altogether still at the moment, progress of the game's development during my time playing has been encouraging. I know that detractors of the game will say that is a ludicrous statement in the context of Star Citizen's full development time, but I can only speak to my own experiences with the game, and so much has changed in the past year that things are definitely moving forward quickly. Professions like salvaging that are at present absent from the game are right on the doorstep now, and with server meshing and pyro now on the horizon, it is a very exciting time to be a citizen. With 4 major updates a year, spaced 3 months apart, progress on the game always feels like it's moving forward. Just when you're feeling settled with something, it's time for a new addition to the game, and the major changes come with many smaller changes too that sometimes can be even more of a boon than the major ones, depending on where your interests lie with the game. So with that in mind, what does a year in Star Citizen look like? Well, let's start with where many get their first experience and some words of caution about it. Free fly events are a great way to give new players the chance to experience the game, no doubt. But I have to be honest and say that in my experience thus far, free fly seems to have a really negative effect on performance. And so coming in during one is not always optimal in terms of your experience. When they are happening during the major 2 ship sale events, Invictus Launch Week in May, or IAE, which I think is in November, you also have the added performance hit of these big shows to contend with. Again, just going off of my own experiences so far. I started playing right after the Invictus event last year, so missed out on the free fly. But my system spec wasn't quite up to the task at the time anyway. Maybe it was that I was going in with very low expectations. You have to remember that in the Elite Dangerous community, opinion of Star Citizen is very low. But even with choppy performance, my first experiences were still very positive. And once I upgraded modestly, and then later more substantially, the game has run like a dream. When one of the major patches is approaching, you will get a few weeks of the public test universe, running alongside the live game. This can be accessed first by the select group known as Evo Carty, then by subscribers and those holding concierge status with RSI, and then finally by all backers. And it's nice to get a preview of upcoming changes before they go live, usually with an enormous credit balance to allow for a lot of testing. Things that happen on the PTU do not affect your main account, so you can test and spend to your heart's content. Then a patch will release, and this can be a mixed bag in terms of the effect on gameplay and experience. Like with most live service games, there is a certain period of fixes right after a patch, usually a week or 2, but some bugs can persist for an entire patch, and then you'll get the stable experience for that particular patch. This can also vary. We had 3.15 and 3.16 where the 30k had all but been eliminated, a true rarity. 3.17 has seen it come back to a lesser but definitely still quite frequent occurrence. Generally, there is a lot of transparency from CIG about these things, so if they are aware of problems, you'll know ahead of time. My experience using the issue tracker has been mostly positive, albeit we do have an org to upvote things if they are of severe hindrance to what we're doing. Once a major patch is settled, what you'll see is what you'll have for the next few months. The vast majority of the time, everything is working to a level that you need not worry about the bugs. You do learn best practices for any of the bugs that are player avoidable, and if you join an org, they will pass along to you their wealth of knowledge on these best practices. Star Citizen is 95% smooth gameplay and a lot of fun, and 5% of the time getting knocked through the station by elevators flying through the air. As far as I'm concerned, Star Citizen is a playable game, provided you are in it for the experience rather than for any kind of solid progression. Some people want progression outside of just seeing improvements in their own ability, while others can be satisfied with a sandbox experience where the adventures are emergent or of their own making. Both approaches have their merits for sure, but Star Citizen definitely falls in the latter category right now. Database wipes can happen. In the year I've been playing, we've had 1 total wipe. That was at the launch of 3.15. And this wasn't a major problem for me personally, because by then I knew how to make money in the game, and had a ton of experience and better skill than when I started. And I guess crucially, I do not play for that kind of progression. If you've watched the channel before, you'll know that we have a fairly large org called Skunkworks. And for me, progression in the game is building the org and setting up events and storylines for them to play through. But for every bug that is fixed, there seem to be new bugs that come up, and some bugs that seem to be fixed then reappear in later patches. A lot of times these bugs are not a problem outside of being just annoyances, but sometimes a bug will appear that causes some sizable problems in gameplay. It has never been so bad for me personally that it stopped me enjoying the game, but in the org there have been many occasions where someone will walk away for a few weeks while some major problem is worked out. And this is seemingly an unpredictable process as well. Sometimes bugs will appear in the public test universe, a test version of the game that is released prior to the live updates of each patch. They get fixed in the PTU, but then are still present in the live version of the game. A small example of this that I can attest to is the Dragonfly maneuvering thrusters. As long-time viewers of the channel will know, I have spent quite a bit of time on Dragonflies, and so I'm quite in tune with their handling, and immediately noticed in the PTU when the maneuvering thrusters of the Dragonfly would cease to work if the Dragonfly left the ground. Essentially, this meant that if you initiated a jump with the vehicle, during the jump you lost all control of the vehicle. This was then later fixed in a PTU patch, but upon the release of the current live patch, the problem returned and remains to this day. This is a very minor one, sure, but we've seen it with more impactful problems too. Heavy armor blocking the ability to see through your weapon optic is pretty difficult, and again was once fixed. The dreaded 30k crashes were eliminated for a few patches, and then came back with a vengeance. I say these things not to attack the game or CG, but I feel it's important to give an honest representation of my experience over the year with the project. And I mean, the channel wouldn't be what it is if I didn't love the game, right? The point here is that if you're tolerant of bugs when they occur and can shrug off the odd situation where a bug may cause you to be killed in game or lose the fight because of desync, then I promise you that the rest of the experience is more than enough to make it worthwhile. We didn't really expect the Elite Dangerous squadron we had to grow so big so quickly after the switch to Star Citizen. This in and of itself has also been a very steep learning curve for me, both in and out of game. It was definitely being thrown in the deep end with leading something that big, and it's fair to say mistakes have been made along the way, but I like to feel we got it to a good place in the end. Seeing something like that come together and seeing people take up positions within our org and train in the roles they enjoy is very cool, and the level of freedom Star Citizen gives players to do these things is great. There is a true multiplayer aspect to Star Citizen that is lacking in some other space games. The direction of the game is only going to grow more complex and require more teamwork, with the scale of ships and the intricacies of logistics in the game is going to get ever more org focused, and so I would highly suggest that new players join an org. You don't have to be super social. I know a lot of people I've spoken to feel they don't want to join an org because of the social aspect, but having people to back you up is a huge advantage. Not to mention that the game is always just more fun with a bunch of people than alone. And what you'll typically find is that orgs are subdivided into smaller groups to make things more easy to manage. Most members just hang with a small group that they know well, but when the big events come, rallying together behind one flag is a very powerful thing. As always, I want to thank all of you at home for watching and send out a huge thank you to all of our amazing patrons, who you can see on screen right now. You guys are awesome, and I want to thank you very much for the support. It is hugely appreciated. Patron support is enormously helpful in allowing me the time it takes to edit these videos together, and I am enormously grateful to all of you for the help that you give me. If you are thinking of starting Star Citizen yourself, use the referral code in the description below to gain an extra 5,000 credits when signing up for a new account.